You're tuning in to Ready, Set, Reset, where our goal is to help listeners reset their outlook by providing a closer look into behavioral and mental health in our youth. We visit with a range of professionals across the field to get their input and insight on what's really going on. Our first series kicks off with the Student Mental Health Chronicles, which features school counselors from across Texas, from public to private. This podcast is for educational and motivational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional training or personal therapy. Hello, and welcome to the Ready, Set, Reset podcast. I'm your host, Sierra O'Neill, licensed professional counselor and founder of Reset IOP. You're tuning in to our very first episode of an inspiring podcast that spotlights school counselors and the incredible work they do day in and day out with our students. The content you will hear on this podcast is focused on the struggles in the schools related to the mental health of our youth, providing weekly insight, resources, and solutions to address the growing and ongoing issues that will support other school counselors, parents, teachers, and the students. Our first guest is school counselor Kayci Johonson, here with us today from Kathryn Joy Gilliam Collegiate Academy in Dallas, Texas. Welcome, Ms. Johonson. How are you feeling today?
Hello, Mrs. O'Neill. Thank you for having me. I feel relaxed, refreshed, and ready to go. I am finishing my last day of break before we start back on Monday, so I'm feeling pretty good so far.
Well, that's definitely awesome to hear. I know those winter breaks and summer breaks always come in handy just to help you reset your mind, your body, and get ready to jump back into the school year with those kiddos. So before we just really jump into things, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience as a school counselor?
So I'm from Arlington, Texas. My high school was James Bowie High School. Shout out volunteers. I went to school actually not to even be a school counselor. I went to school for animal science because I didn't want to work with people. Come to find out, God had other plans for me. So I ended up becoming a school counselor after I was a teacher for 6 years. I had my mentor teacher. She came into my classroom when I was at my middle school. And it was her very first lesson that she gave. And I asked her, I said, how did you become a school counselor? And she told me. And then I went into grad school and here I am.
When you decided to finally jump out there and, get into school counseling, do you feel like that was the right decision for you, or would you go back to teaching?
It was the right decision for me at the time. If I ever needed to go back into teaching, I would. I would skip middle school. I'd probably go back to elementary. But I would definitely go back to teaching. It became a passion of mine. It wasn't a passion when I first started out, but as I went through my years, so I taught for 6 years.
Okay.
And I taught I taught kinder through 6th grade.
Wow.
So I had a wide range of students, but yeah.
Okay. And currently at Kathryn Joy Gilliam, what grades do you, assist with as far as your role as a school counselor there?
I service all grades. I'm the one and only counselor at Gilliam Collegiate Academy.
Wow.
So we have about 348-ish students at our school right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. TEA says that we can have about 450.
Wow. Okay. So, kind of with that being you being the only school counselor at your school right now, what would you say your biggest challenge is in the school when it comes to supporting the students?
My biggest challenge in the school would have to be the students themselves, because they don't know how to communicate properly about how they feel emotionally. So that emotional disconnect there hinders me from being able to do my job in the best way possible, because you kind of almost have to drag it out of these students. They'll talk to you about literally anything. They'll talk to you about TV. They'll talk to you about the sun and the sky and everything else, but they will not talk to you about their emotions, because I believe in most cases, a lot of the parents say, keep those things to yourself. Or parents are not talking to them enough about their emotions, so they don't know what to say.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's very true. I see the same things in working with students as well. And, when parents bring their kids to my counseling office or bring them to our program, I have to remind them, I'm not just working with the kid. You can't just drop your kid off at therapy and think that everything will be resolved and things will get better. It takes effort from them too. But when you don't have parents that are as supportive or know how to emotionally invest in their children, or just kind of not in the right headspace, it is up to us as the professionals to support them further. And it's a challenge, like you said, they can't express their feelings or really know how to do it. And you've got to get on their level to be able to help them understand and help them kind of unnormalize some things that aren't normal, or normalize some things that are normal, to have a better understanding of maybe who they are so they can reach their full potential, right?
For sure.
So it's like, when you think about the situations and that you deal with the kids on a day in and day out, do you get much support from the parents when, maybe some issues are at hand?
I do. My parents, I feel like once I make that phone call to the parent and say, hey, I think your student needs additional support.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my parents are very supportive.
Okay, great.
I actually hosted a mental health seminar that you were a part of. Thank you for that once again. And I think from there, we've had an increase of students actually attend not only my office, but me, to be able to have students go over to our mental health clinician that's on campus.
Wow. Okay.
To have somebody, to have somebody to talk to, because those parents feel like I've missed something. When the pandemic hit, it was almost like they were shut off from the world, and all they had was a social media, a phone, and maybe the people that are around them, and maybe some of those people around them were even passing away or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the students and the parents are finally coming to an understanding, like, mental health is important. Mm-hmm. So my parents, they do really well when I have to make that phone call.
Wow. That's awesome to hear, Ms. Johnson. I know you mentioned as far as the seminar that you did earlier this year, and it's like you took one day out of the week. That was 1 hour of parents and students' time. And from that, you've seen an increase in people saying, hey, let me pay a little bit more attention to my mental health as a student, and the parent as well, to say, hey, let me make sure that they have the support that they need. And let me look at things a little bit different. And sometimes that's all it takes. Yeah. Just better awareness, because we lack so much awareness in so many areas, especially when it comes to the students in the schools, because for one, I know there's so many of them, it's like, how can we keep up? But it's just like having that increased awareness and be able to get on their level and just let them know that you're there for them as a school counselor. So one other question kind of related to the struggles that you have when it comes to, kind of reaching your students. I know you say it's a challenge because they don't know how to express themselves, and they just maybe are so, resistant at times. What are some things or tips or, tricks that you use to be able to really build that rapport and, have a relationship with them to where they trust you?
Okay. So one thing that I do is I am in the front of our school when the students come in to check in the mornings, and I'm there at the end of the day. I'm actually the one that makes the final announcements at the end of the day. And I step outside of the office once my announcements are over, and I say goodbye to the students and everything. I'm always in my kids, if you want to say, in their presence. I'm always in their presence. I walk the hallways. We don't have that many hallways. We have 2 hallways in our school, really. And I walk the hallways. My kids see me. I check on my kids. I check on my kids more often than not. Sometimes I even sit down and eat lunch with my students.
Oh, wow.
Talk to them in the lunch line. I'll go outside. I may play a basketball game or two, throughout the school year with them, just so they know that I'm a familiar face, 1.
Yeah. And
2, that I am a safe space for them to be able to, come and talk to if they ever need to talk about anything, not just about negative things. They can come talk to me about something positive. I have kids come tell me, oh, Ms. Johnson, I just made a 81 on my test. And I'm like, give me a high five, and these are high school kids.
Yeah.
These aren't elementary school babies. Like, they want that, I guess, that sense of, I feel at home.
Yeah. And it's that support outside of the home that they may or may not get at home, but they're getting from, this lady, this school counselor, this person at school that doesn't have to be there for me, but is choosing to do that. And that's why, I really applaud school counselors so much, because it's like, it is a lot getting into school. It's not like, private practice to where you can, maybe be more particular with the type of people that you work with. It's like everybody's coming to school. You get who you get and you're working with them. But that's what's needed, more and more to be able to reach those kids that are out there. So, you mentioned your presence being one of your kind of tips and tools, and that's so important. I myself personally, I made sure my presence was known. Like you said, walking those hallways, popping into group rooms, teaching a psycho ed group 1 or 2 days, or stepping in when a therapist may be having a rough day, just to let the kids know that, hey, we support each other consistently. And it's just like this wraparound approach that we use to support everybody as a system. So like you said, presence is very vital when it comes down to supporting students, but supporting mental health as well. Because even as a school counselor and as a, personally as a person, we need the presence of other people sometimes to know that people care and are supporting us. So, as we talk about the presence and just kind of, you walk in the halls and being around there for the students, what would you say are the main challenges with the teachers or the other staff members that interact with the students that may not understand, the mental health aspect of things when it comes to students?
Really, the challenge that I have with some of the teachers is understanding what my role is and what my job duties are, because a lot of people think because I am on the administration team at my school, because I am the lead counselor, I'm the only counselor there that is. They think I deal with discipline, which I do not. I don't want students thinking that they come to me based solely on, oh, something's wrong. They can come to me about anything that they want to. So the teachers, they had to understand what I do as a school counselor. I don't just create schedules for my students. I do a lot more.
Mhm.
So in the very beginning of the school year, what I ended up doing is I had a conversation with the teachers. I did a little PD session about who I am and what my role is and what my duties are. And I also have a mental health clinician that is on campus with me a few days a week, and I had to get them to understand what his job duties are.
Okay. Okay, so putting that out early in the school year, you feel like it increased your presence for the teachers too, and the other
Yeah.
staff members, just along with the students, but also, like I said, help them understand a little bit more to make sure that those kids get to refer to you more appropriately, and just kind of build that rapport and that relationship with the other staff members. So maybe as a team, you guys can support the students overall.
Right.
And so, with that being, would you say you just have seen a greater success than maybe last year?
I have seen a greater success. There's always one that just doesn't quite get exactly what I do, but I know that I have some kids that are on my caseload that are in certain classrooms where it's like, okay, I know that this may be a bad day for them because I saw how they came into the school, so I may check on them.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I do for a lot of things I do for my teachers as well. I make sure that they understand that they have a place in my office if they ever need to come see me.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
we have an employee assistance program that I also push every month in our newsletter to
Okay.
say, hey, go help yourself. I also give out at the very end of every month, I do a Wellness Wednesday pool draw for my for my teachers
Wow,
specifically.
okay.
So I've given out Massage Envy gift cards. I've given out spa baskets. I've
Oh.
given out food cards. I paid for lunch, gas cards, all kinds of things to show them what it looks like to
Okay.
actually help yourself mentally,
Mhm.
because those some things that you're just like, oh God, I need a break.
Yeah.
Your kids need the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So I do so I try to get them to understand on both sides. You need it and my kids need it.
Yeah.
And I don't call them my students, I call them my kids.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So you out there teaching that self-care, which
Yes.
is so vital, and people neglect or don't realize sometimes that it's very much so needed.
yeah.
And self-care can be, a lot of tangible things or things that we take and do to ourselves, but sometimes it can be as simple as, taking a break, sitting in your office, closing the door, or just doing something to where if you need to set a certain boundary, letting people know, like you said, you set that boundary early on with the teachers that, hey, don't just send the kids to my office for a disciplinary action. Like, we need to talk about this further, identify what's really going on, and like really work through this. So I think that's amazing. And I know you also mentioned a newsletter that you do is that every week,
month.
every month? So is that something that's required by the school district
No.
or the school, or is that totally you?
That is totally me. That is on me. It's called Miss Johnson's Counseling Corner.
Wow. Okay. And does that go out to students and staff, or?
It goes out to staff
Okay.
and it goes out to parents.
Okay. Oh, awesome. So getting the parents involved further, but like you said, taking that extra step to support just kind of the kid all the way around. So
Right.
that's definitely awesome to hear. Like I said, just those different things that you're implementing. And I think that that's great, because the more involvement, because you can't do it by yourself, right? You're trying, and some kids
Right.
I know you probably have to try to do, but it's difficult to do those things by ourselves. And as much awareness you can bring to parents, other staff members, along with the kids, it's like the better success you'll get from that kid.
Oh yeah.
So as as we talk about school and, the staff members that, you deal with day in and day out, let's talk about a little, let's talk about and reflect back to when you were in school. So what was school was like when you were in school as a student? Did you know who your school counselor was?
I did not know who my school counselor was. I mean, I wish that I did, because there's a moment in my high school career where my father passed away the second semester of my junior year. So my father passed away in January, and then my aunt passed away in April. And I wish that I would have had somebody that I could have talked to at that point to just get out my feelings. But I didn't know who my counselor was.
Wow. Wow. And I'm really sorry to hear that, definitely going through something, like losing a parent so early on, especially during those teenage years. I mean, it's already hard within itself. And then on top of that, you lose a parent. But then, like you said, you had no support at school. And no, it's not the school's job to support you through something like that. But at the same time, we spend as much, students spend as much time at school, as they do with their family at home.
Right.
So it's like when you were going through that, did you, notice, if you look back on it, some of the things that were different about you when you went to school? Like, did your grades start dropping? Did you kind of start avoiding certain people, certain places? Were you missing school? Like, how was it? How were you impacted by the loss of your father and, having to go to school day in and day out?
Honestly, how it ended up working out is I did not want to be at home. After so long, I was there a couple of days with my mom, and that right there was enough for me. And I ended up going back to school. My grades never dropped.
Okay.
I just kept pushing forward in life because I felt like that's what I had to do.
Wow. So when you say you had to, you felt like that's what you had to do, you feel like the grieving process for you was rushed, or you just had to hide it?
A little bit of both. It was I felt like I needed to rush it for for my mom's sake, and then I felt like I also needed to hide it, for my mom's sake as well, because I didn't want her to see me in a position where, I'm down, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm this, and she's already dealing with what she's got to deal with. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I needed to be the stronger one at that point for my mom.
So you had to be more emotionally prepped for this situation, and didn't have the support that you needed. Again, your mom's grieving as well, and that's, nothing to her, because we are going to go through that when we lose the loved one.
Right.
But, if you would have had that school counselor, at school, do you think that would have made a difference, or, had some type of effect on you where it would have been a different outcome?
I do wish that I had somebody that said, "Hey, what's going on? Are you, you're all right? I've been told this." Because the one teacher that I did try to tell about my father passing away and my aunt passing away, I was basically talked really bad to as a kid. She told me that it was my fault that I'm not being exempted because I decided to go to the funeral. She said that her son skipped his grandfather's funeral.
Wow.
Because and so he could get exempt, so he could be exempted from the exams. And that then let me know, like, I don't think that I have a school counselor that I can go to, and I definitely don't. It turned me off talking to any teachers about what I had going on in my life.
Wow. That's rough, just kind of within itself, and hurtful. Like you said, it just turned you away from expressing your feelings, to kind of going back to your point of the kids that you work with now don't know how to express themselves. And it makes me wonder, have they ran into a teacher like that? Have they ran into another adult like that, to where they have been turned off, or they maybe have an emotionally immature parent, and they just figure it's better off just kind of keeping everything in?
Yeah, and I'm honestly, truly, I'm sure that happens. As when I talk to my students, I know that has happened to them, which may be another factor as to why they don't speak to myself or maybe somebody else in the school. I was 16 when that happened. I'm almost 30. I'm almost 32. I'll be 32 this year. That was almost 16 years ago. And I still remember those very same words that lady spoke to me that day. So I need people to also understand the impact of if a student is coming to you, if a student comes to you, the words that you use with those in front of those students, because you don't know how that's going to affect them later on, or how long they're going to carry that. Because I've carried this for almost 16 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
those words matter.
Words matter
in that moment. And if you don't know what to say as teachers and other professionals in schools, maybe don't say anything. Maybe just let them know, hey, I'm sorry you're going through that, and refer them out. Refer them to a school counselor. Refer them to, the principal to get them connected with the counselor. But, when you see kids going through things and just kind of, find yourself in a place of not knowing what to do, it doesn't hurt to ask for assistance and kind of refer out. Because what Miss Johonson went through, I feel like no kid should have to go through that. Again, even if that teacher was dealing with her own situation at the time, it's like, where is the further support to not shut that one student out to where it shuts everything down? Because the impact that it has on life further, her being 16 at that time, she had 2 more years of school left, just kind of, dealing with that at the time and having to go through the rest of, those years of school with knowing that I'm on my own, when it comes to school. I need to get my grades. I need to do this, and it's all up to me, which it is at the end of the day. We want to make sure we hold students accountable, but at the same time, too, the support that is planted in the school on purpose and required, by a lot of states and districts in general. It's like, let's make sure that that resource is being used more so than not, just kind of when it really comes down to it. So, Ms. Johonson, I feel like we've had a great conversation today, just kind of talking about the ins and outs of what you deal with at Kathryn Joy Gilliam Collegiate Academy, and kind of the struggles that you've had personally when it comes to a student, when you were a student and didn't have a school counselor, to rely on, or the resources just that you needed at that time. So, I really appreciate you being my guest today, and like I said, providing that additional insight, just kind of in general to, maybe help somebody else out there when they hear your story, or just kind of relating in that same way. So as we kind of close up, if you had one thing to leave with our listeners, what would that be?
My final thoughts and what I want to leave everybody with is, parents, please talk to your students. Please make sure that they have a safe space at home where they are able to discuss whatever they feel. As long as they're not, I always tell my students, as long as you're not being disrespectful, you can express yourself how you need to, because they are missing that piece. They are missing it. And if you yourself need help, in D.I.S.D, we have plenty of partnerships that can assist you for free if you need assistance yourself. Please make sure that your students know that it is okay to talk about how they feel.
That's a good point. Like I said, having that wraparound support just coming from whichever side, whether that be within the schools or outside of the schools. And even with myself, we have our intensive outpatient program that is for youth and adolescents ages 10 to 16, but it's also for parents too, because we do require kids to do family therapy while they're in the program to be able to address some of those looming things that have not been addressed, and parents are wondering why things aren't changing. But then there's also, therapists and counselors out there, such as Counseling by Penny in Fort Worth, Texas, that does in-person and virtual mental health therapy, and they also take insurance and have those options for you to be able to feel like you can get help. It's across the board. So I really appreciate you guys listening in today. I thank you for tuning in and taking the time out to listen in on mental health, just kind of in general, especially when it comes to our students and the schools and the wonderful work that school counselors do. And as I leave you today, I want you to just remember, all it takes sometimes is resetting your outlook. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ready, Set, Reset 1. Follow us on Instagram at ready_set_reset1 for mental health tips, laughs, and motivation. And if you know a student or have a child in the Fort Worth area that could use some additional support, visit our website at sunflowersigma.com to see if Reset IOP is right for them. You will find the resources discussed in today's podcast in the description area.